was a whole other story. I wasn't here for that.
Oh, you're a lucky one.
That was the worst one ever in LA.
You've been here or not?
I was not.
I was here.
You were here?
Yeah, so.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't the one in the Bay Area that collapsed the bridge and killed 60 people. And I was on my way to the bridge too, not driving yet, but my appointment was being delayed. So I was by the elevator of a building that was on rollers. A lot of buildings aren't. I mean, that was absolute terror for about 1 minute. Only 1 minute, but file cases. I mean, I was fine.
Well,
people were outside like it was celebration. So I guess they heard the death toll.
Well,
it was bad.
Northridge earthquake, a lot of bridges collapsed too here.
Yeah, I don't know what the death toll was, but it probably was
Well,
much higher.
death toll was about 65, 69.
Yeah, this was the same up there. Because the bridge collapsed on people, the cars that were there. It was like 2-story bridge,
Terrifying.
Yeah, but that was the worst one. There were several others that, there were nothing recent in LA that I've been at. You kind of forget about it like the rain.
It was Whittier earthquake we had, 88, I think, Whittier. It was very strong, a lot of damage.
Oh, 80 years ago?
Yeah. Then 94.
The Whittier one was 88, you were saying, and then in 94 was Northridge. Yeah, it was.
I was out of town for Northridge.
Devi, ask you a question.
Yes.
Does Temple has any policies regarding the use of cellular phone during service?
Yes.
Which is?
Tell people not to do it.
It includes only congregants or clergy too?
Also clergy. Why? Was I on my phone?
No comment. Well, just question, because it's contagious, I can see.
Yeah.
People can take their eyes from
devices, yeah.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah. Oh, nobody here, the clergy, the congregants, nobody is supposed to be on phones in the building.
It's only half an hour. Have you been in LA during Northridge?
I've been what?
During the Northridge earthquake, have you been?
I lived in Southern California, but I was not close enough to feel it. You're too far south.
Yeah, our office was in Santa Monica.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll spread the word in the WhatsApp group that I have with the third graders. Well, I'll send it online, so I'll probably take a picture and send it, yeah.
It goes up, you want, I can send you, because I have done one which is for.
Yeah. I'll hold on to this thing and the registration form, and then I can always take a picture. You can send me the digital.
And because I made it one, it's like photo for sending. Because it was dark when I did photos. I don't know how to do it again.
Okay. We're late, but there's no one here.
45.
Yeah, no, 440.
4:40, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's okay. Wait till we have people.
Well, plus one.
It's New Year, that's
Plus one, yeah.
Don't leave.
He's not leaving. Gary, you just came.
Do it. Scary ass.
I don't figure out what I'm doing. I gotta get my books.
Yeah, get your books, yeah.
Oh,
The books are over there now.
This morning there was no sound. I was dialed in,
Really?
everything, and then it clicked on. But like, I went to Hamacombe.
Yeah.
I did a little traveling and I came back to you before.
That's so
It was weird,
strange.
it was weird.
But at the beginning, there was no sound in the feed?
But there was no seat on the feet,
Huh, weird.
which I would never expect on a, I could see that on a, I didn't expect that on a live feed.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's odd.
I came back.
Is Rabbi Kickler back or not yet?
I think he's back tomorrow or tonight. It must be tomorrow by the time, with the
They are
traveling,
in
yeah.
the airplane now?
Yeah, well, he was coming back with the group. I think they're back tomorrow, so.
They're back tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. So
people are staying a little longer.
Right, exactly. He's going back with a group tomorrow.
Rabbi Schatz is not gonna get, that's the team who didn't get filled up the first round.
She's trying this time. I'm going as well. I'm going at actually the same time, but I'm not going on the trip with Rabbi Schatz. I signed on to go on a mission, March 11th to 18th, to go with writers to sit and learn from witnesses of what's been going on for the last few months.
You're going to Israel?
To Israel.
Is it, which mission you said?
It's for writers.
Oh, okay.
That didn't qualify me.
I don't know if I'm qualified, but they accepted me. But the idea is to meet with people who've had experiences, parents of the Shuim, the people who survived attacks, and to write their stories.
Oh,
That's what we're gonna do.
so
Sit there
when
and
you
write.
come back, you'll share results?
When I come back, I'll share the whole point is, we also are supposed to meet with other writers in Israel who are dealing with writing about what's happened. They're gonna take us to the new National Library, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm
How many days
a week.
a week?
Yeah, I'll go for a week. I wasn't sure I was gonna go, but this is right for
When are
me.
you leaving?
The 11th. So if this trip goes with Rabbi Schatz, I'll spend the same Shabbat in Jerusalem that she does.
She's also leaving on the 11th, I got the.
No, I think she's leaving a little earlier. Maybe it's no, she's going the 10th. I think it's that same week-ish, but they have a whole,
After tax season, it'd be much easier to do.
you just have to anticipate that. Okay, we're gonna start. Shabbat Shalom. There are 2 camera angles in here, which is new. And it's part of the renovation in Pilch Hall. So if you're seeing me from behind, that's why. I asked for us to still have a screen here so I can see those who are here. That would have been more relevant on a day when we have El Males, but there are none because it's Rosh Chodesh. We're going to begin Mincha, page 214. אשר ישבי ביתך, עוד ידללוך סלה, אשר עם שככה לו, אשר עם שאדוני אלוהיו תהילה לדוד. תהילת אדוני ידבר פי, ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד, ואנחנו נברך ימי תביא עד עולם, הללויה, ובא לציון ולשבח ושב יעקב נאום אדוני ונצור. יצא קדוש שבתי lot ישראל, וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך לארץ כבודו. ותישאני רוח ושמע אחרי כל רעש גדול, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו תולד מרוחת. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ויבטחו בך יהודי שמך, כי לא עזבת דורשך אדוני, אדוני חפץ למען צדקו, יגדיל תורה ויאדיר. Well, Rosemary, are you our Torah reader?
Let me check if anybody.
Yeah, let's check. We'll check and see. If nobody is coming, then Marshall's here. That's good. Let's see.
We need to.
The 10th person?
You're the 8th,
8th person.
so we still really need you.
Okay.
But
I'll
let's
see you. Bye-bye.
Gary did the same. Interesting.
Hi, Rosa.
I'll wait just a moment to see if we have a minion so that we can read Torah.
Yeah.
Non-stop, huh? Annette Berman gave an announcement at the library Minyan today that Sundays in the afternoon, they need
They need, they urgently need people to come.
5:15.
It's 5:15.
It should be 5:15, yeah, for the evening minion. Yes, because of the Super Bowl, it's often hard to get a.
Oh, I won't watch
You don't
the
see anyone
Super
coming?
Bowl. I don't watch the
So
Super
then you'll
Bowl.
come here. That's perfect.
A lot of people don't watch the Super Bowl.
That's true. But you need
We
them.
hate it.
Um,
I call it the toilet bowl. I mean, I won't watch this stuff.
well, then we'll use you for minion. All right, we don't have a minion here, but I want to still hear the parsha. So Rosemary, will you please come and chant for us? Oh yeah, you can grab a. I'll lend you this talit. Okay, and come in and chant for us. We'll do.
What page, please?
Oh, good question. I have it in the weekday siddur, but I'll find it. Let's see. And here we go. There we go. No problem. What page was it? That's 485. Okay. So Parshat Truma is on page 485 in Eitz Chaim. We begin with chapter 25, verse 1.
Shall I bring my book?
Yeah, bring it up there and then I'll have you read from here.
I'm driving, so maybe somebody will come.
Exactly, maybe by the time you get up here. The challenge that we always have with this is that at a certain point, look at that. Hey, 10. Okay, so let's do the Torah service.
Yeah, get to work.
Look at that, we'll get to work. The problem, I was going to say, the challenge is that eventually we have to do Mincha on time.
I wasn't going faster.
We're on page 218. Vani tfilati lech Adonai et ratzon, Elohim rochastecha in hevim eishishecha, vayhi bin Zoharon, vayomer Moshe, kum Adonai v'yafutzu yevecha, v'yanusu misanecha mipanecha, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, u'devar Adonai v'Yerushalayim, baruch shenatan Torah le'mo Yisrael, v'kedushato. Gadlu l'Adonai hiti, huneromem hashemo yachtav, l'chadonai gdula v'kran. Marshall, will you do my Gabbai Sheni, please? Yes. Thank you. Oh, don't be sorry. I didn't even kiss the phone at dinner. I'll tell that story sometime. All right, here we go. Oh.
Is it okay? I could put it in there. Look, great.
Oh, yeah, perfect. Thank you. Okay. All right. Gary, will you take the first Aliyah? Rosa, will you take the second Aliyah? But we're still on the first. We're still on the first. Let's see. Perfect. We're on 485 in Eitz Chaim. Oh, we might need the yod from the other Torah in there. That's true, yeah. Okay. Did they roll it over really fast? See, okay. Oh, but this morning, yeah.
Nope.
Right. What's the opening line? Of course, yes. Kach lecha b'samim rosh. I'm gone too far over for sure. But what's the opening? Deber b'nei Yisrael lemor.
Deber el b'nei Aharon.
Deber b'nei Aharon. And let me take a look at the once again at Truma. Moshe lemor deber b'nei Yisrael v'chu li Truma. Okay, just couldn't remember. Okay, let me go back. It's definitely too far. Guess someone did a very wide hagba.
Better than this happened this afternoon, this morning.
Okay, let's see. Sita Tishkan. Ale. Got it.
Want me to turn?
They roll it too. Shouldn't have been so far over.
Yeah, these are the.
Yeah. That's too far over. Looking for. I just missed it. I need a Dora Minister of the Kulichima. There it is. Okay, perfect. Okay, that's it right there. Okay. Let me call Yuri off my hand. Okay. Oh, we get to have a real Torah reading. ותגלה ותראה מלכותנו בזמן קרוב ויחום פליטתנו פליטת עמו בית ישראל לכנו חסר רחמים לרצון ונאמר אמן הכל הבו גודל אלוהינו תנו כבוד לתורה יעמוד גרשון בן משה ושושנה לעלייה הראשונה ברוך שנתן תורה לעמו ישראל לקדושתו
ואתם הדבקים באדוני אלוהיכם חיים כולכם היום.
ואתם הדבקים באדוני אלוהיכם חיים כולכם היום. 45 chapter 25 verse 1.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'charbanu mikol ha'amim v'natanu et torto Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
אמן. וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל, ויקחו לי תרומה מאת כל איש אשר ידבנו ליבו, ותיקחו את תרומתי, וזאת התרומה אשר תיקחו מאיתם זהב וכסף ונחושת ותכלת וארגמן ותולעת שני ושש ועזים ואורות אלים מאודמים ואורות תחשים ועצי שיטים.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam atzilenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Amen. Gary, will you Yisher Koach, will you lend your talit to Rosa, please?
Sure.
No.
I don't know.
What's your Hebrew name? Amod.
Shoshana, but.
Oh, Shoshana
Moshe.
Moshe, Aliyah Shniha. All right. Second Aliyah, verse 6. Shemin Lamaor.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'charbanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
אמן. שמן למאור ושמים לשמן המשחה ולקטורת הסמים אבני שוהם ואבני מילואים לאפוד ולחושן ועשו לי מקדש ושכנתי בתוכם ככל אשר אני מראה אותך את תבנית המשכן ואת תבנית כל כליו וכן תעשו.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah temet v'hayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
אמן.
Yamod Ruvain. Ben Avraham Sarah, Aliyah Shlishit. It's a little talit.
Baruch Adonai Hamburach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים, ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני, נותן התורה.
אמן.
אמן. ועשו ארון עצי שיטים, 250 ארכו, 150 רחבו, 150 קומתו, וציפית אותו זהב טהור, מבית ומחוץ תצפנו, ועשית עליו זר זהב סביב, ויצקת לו 4 טבעות זהב, ונעטת על 4 פעמותיו, ושתי טבעות על צלות האחד, ושתי טבעות על צלות השנית, ועשית בדי עצי שיטים, וציפית אותם זהב, והבאת את הבדים בטבעות על צלעות הארון, לשאת את הארון בהם, בטבעות הארון יהיו הבדים, לא יסורו ממנו, ונתת את הארון, אל הארון את העדות אשר אתן אליך.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי העולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
שכוח רוסו, שכוח.
Are you up to listening?
I could do it also, either.
Well, let me give to Marshall because he hasn't gotten an honor yet, but will you wrap it? Wait, come wrap it. Yeah. But I want to give Papa to someone who hasn't done an
Give
honor
me some
yet.
rap music.
Yeah, some rap music for him.
Wait, you need the chair.
I get the chair.
I got it.
You got a chair?
You're the chairman.
All right, please rise for the Torah.
Torah, Asher Sam Moshe, Lifnei Bnei Yisrael, Elohi Adonai, B'yad Moshe.
Yitzchayim Ha'machazikim Ha'vetomecha Meushar. Yitzchayim Ha'machazikim Ha'vetomecha Meushar. Derach Darchei Noam Bechol Netivotei Shalom.
Yagdil Torah V'Ya'ir.
Yeah, but we should pause and say memory anyway, because it's your side today.
No.
This is week? Okay, so we'll do it this week. Who's that for? How many years? Yeah. That's literally a lifetime of the family. Yeah, wow. Okay, as I was just saying, thank you, and Yashar Koach, the Rosemary for reading. I was just saying we don't do Amales today because of Rosh Chodesh. But those who have Yartzeit this week can feel free to come back and say it on a Monday, a Thursday, or next Shabbat, which as far as I know is not a Rosh Chodesh. We're going to return the Torah to the Ark. We're on page 221 in Sidor Lev Shalem. Yalenu et Shema Adonai ki niskar shemo levado. Hallelujah. David is born. Mihu ze melech hakavod, Adonai tzvaot hu melech hakavod Selah, uvnu chol yomar. Hashivinu Adonai lecha v'nashuva chadish amenu kekedem. We continue with Chatzi Kaddish, middle of 222. Yikadav yikadash mirabah v'ilmad yivrach yirtem lich malchutei b'cheichon v'yamechon v'chei tuchol beit Yisrael b'galav v'zman karvi v'imru amen. Yesha mirabah b'vorach li'olam hu'meil maya yiparach v'shabach v'yipar v'yishma v'yitnasei v'yitadar v'yitalei v'yitalal shmei dekudesha berich u'leila min kol berchata v'shirata Shushachata v'nechamata damira miyama v'imru amen. We continue now with the whispered private Amidah beginning on page 223. Please keep in mind that it's still Rosh Chodesh, which means we make an insertion on page 227. In the middle of the page, it's the insertion that says on Rosh Chodesh, but we begin on 223. It's recited privately while standing. If you haven't yet completed your own private Amidah, you can continue at your own pace. The repetition begins on page 223. Please join me through the Kedusha on 225. And at the end of the Kedusha with the blessing Ha'el HaKadosh, you can be seated. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Yisrael Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Hayel HaGadol HaGibor Ben-Hora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim B'chonei Yaakov Zocher Chasdei Havot Umivi Goel Livnei Bnei Leman Shemo B'Ahava Melech Ozer Voked Moshe Magim Baruch atah Adonai Magim Avraham Uvoked Sarah Atah Gibor Le'Lam Adonai Mechim Mitimata Rav Leoshia Meshiv Haruach Umarit HaGashem Mechal Chaim Bechesed Mechim Hitim Rachamim Rabim Samech Nopelim V'Rofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umkayim Umunat Lishnei Afar Michamocha Baal Gevurot Umitomen Lach Melch Mimit Umchayim Matzmiach Yeshua V'Ne'eman Atah Lachio Beitim Baruch atah Adonai V'Chayei Amitim Nikadesh Shimcha Ba'olam Kashem Shemati Shimoto Bishmei Marom Gakatul Yad Nihecha V'Karazel Zev Yamar
Kadosh, Kadosh,
Kadosh Kadosh Adonai Tzvot Melech Loretz Kevodo L'matam Baruch Yomeru Baruch Kevod Adonai Mimekomo B'divrei Kodecha Katuv Le'mor Imloch Adonai Le'olam Elohai Sihon Le'dor Vador Hallelujah Le'dor Vador Nagid Godlecha Netzach Netzachim Kedushatecha Nakdish V'shivchacha Eloheinu Mipinu Lo Yamush Le'olam Va'ed Yelech Gadol V'kadosh Ata Baruch Ata Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh Ata Echad V'shimcha Echad Umi Ke'amcha Yisrael Mi Ke'amcha Ke'amcha Yisrael Ka'echad V'haaretz Tiferet Gedula Vateret Yeshua Yom Nucha Uktusha Le'amcha Natata Yom Nucha Uktusha Le'amcha Natata Avraham Yakel Yitzchak Yiranein Yaakov Uvanav Yanuchuva Yaakov Uvanav Yanuchuva Menuchat Avandava Menuchat Emet Ve'emunah Menuchat Shalom V'Shava V'Eshket V'Vetach Menucha Shlema Shatarot Bach Yakiru V'necha V'yedu Kimi Techayim Menuchatav V'Menuchatam Yaktishu Et Shemecha Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu Ritzivim Menuchateinu Kadeshenu B'mitzvotecha V'tein Chelkenu B'Toratecha Sameinu Mituvecha V'samachenu B'Shuatecha V'taher Libeinu Levtecha B'emet V'enchilenu Adonai Eloheinu B'Ahava V'Ratzon Shabbat Kodecha V'yenuchu V'ach Yisrael Mikadeshei Shemecha Baruch atah Adonai Mikadesh HaShabbat V'tzei Adonai Eloheinu B'yamei Yisrael V'tfilatam V'yeshevet Ha'odah V'tfireitecha V'tfilatam B'avatecha V'alberatzon U'tehila Ratzon Tamid Avodat Yisrael Mecha Eloheinu Eloheinu Ya'alev Yavo V'yagia V'yirahev V'yirtzeh V'yishama V'yipakei V'yisacher Zichronenu V'fitonenu V'zichron Avotenu V'zichron Mashiach Ben David Avdecha V'zichron Yerushalayim Yerkochecha V'zichron Kol Machabeit Yisrael Lefanecha L'fleita L'tova L'cheinu Chesed U'rachamim L'chaim U'shalom B'yom Rosh HaChodesh Hazeh Zochrenu Adonai Eloheinu Bo L'tova U'foktenu Bo Livracha V'yoshinu Bo L'chaim V'dvar Yeshua Rachamim Chus V'chonenu V'racham Aleinu V'yoshienu Yilech Einenu Yilmelechanun V'rachum Hata V'techezeinenu V'shuvacha L'Tzion V'rachamim Baruch atah Adonai Amachazir Shechinato L'Tzion Modim Anachnu Lach Shatach Adonai Atov kilo chadu rachamecha v'rachem kilo tamu chasadecha me'olam kivinu lach v'kulam yibarach v'yitramam shimcha malkeinu tamid le'olam va'ed v'chol ha'chayim yodu chasela v'yalelu et shimcha be'emet ha'el yeshuateinu v'ezratenu sela baruch atah Adonai atov shimcha uchanei lehudot shalom rav al Yisrael amecha v'yokol shvei tevel tzasim le'olam ki atahu melech adon lechol ha'shalom v'tov v'necha Levarech et Amcha Yisrael v'cholei tuchosha v'hishlomecha baruch atah Adonai Levarech et Amo Yisrael v'shalom. We continue with Kaddish Shalem, page 230. Yikata v'ikadash mirabah, v'yama tivrach yirtevim lichol v'tevechaychon, v'yamechon v'chayidechol beit Yisrael, v'agalav v'zman kavdi v'imru amen, yeheshem hei rabah v'varach le'alav u'me'omaya, yiparach v'ishtabach v'yipar v'yishma v'naseh, v'yitadar v'yitalei v'yitalav shmei nekudesh averich u'leila, mincha berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata, damiram be'alma v'imru amen, tikabat alat onot anachol Yisrael, Kadam avuhoni nishmaya v'imru amen. Ishlam arab amin shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'elcho Yisrael v'imru amen. Oh, say shalom v'ramav, uyaseh shalom aleinu v'elcho Yisrael v'imru amen. Please rise, run 231. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'take it ulav yitzabrishichu. Kakatuv b'toratecha Adonai himloch le'olam v'ahe v'nehemar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shmo echad. Mourner's Kaddish is on 232. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah Bialma divra kirute v'yamlich malchute. V'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chaye dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'vizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabba mevarach le'olam lamei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal shemei dekudsha barichu. Le'ela minchol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata, damiram be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'romav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Yesha koach to everybody who participated. We are going to take a little break for Seudah Shlishit. So the food is open, ready for you to take, and then we'll start learning in a little bit. You don't need any other resources in front of you, unless you really want to have an Eitz Chaim to look at the pasuk that we're going to study, the verse that we're going to study. And there are many parts to this teaching, but one takeaway. So feel free to go and eat and b'tei avon, and we'll start in a little bit.
I've been working on a hot dog machine.
Oh, for the gym.
Oh.
You know, my brother was an emergency doctor. This is when I was older. Lifting motion. Be careful. I'm not saying don't do it if you want to do it. So I have many things I wanted to do. Lifting the Torah wasn't my mission in life after.
Oh, okay.
So I saw you do it. I was going to say something. I was in the gym every day. Good Lord will watch over it. That place, though. I don't think give me an excuse to not do one more.
Okay, well, I'll see you back in the gym on Monday. I'll use the machine.
Well, using the,
Give me 2 weeks to do it.
I'm using the, machine thing.
Yeah,
I go up, like, what I do is I go to the afternoon, I go early.
Yeah.
I agree. I just do 15 minutes after a break, like 3 hours. Just, you're lifting your own weight. No, I do, machine stuff, so I don't do weights, I lift, I just do the weight stuff that they do, the machine makes you. Oh, you should go to parks. You know why?
Oh, yeah.
You go to the park too, and you do the. Oh.
Guys are showing me, I remember when I was growing up.
Oh,
I would sometimes visit the Emmanuel Synagogue in
well,
Hartford.
that's good. They don't have that,
It's on there, it's Arthur Correct. A rather strong fellow.
Yeah.
He would do Hagba, not Hagba, but he would do,
Really.
bring the Savior to the Aron, he'd go like this.
But I used to go swimming, I miss the swim, because I usually just swim fishing.
Yeah.
It's outdoors too, isn't it?
It does matter how you do it. Yeah, well, I know you pull it out.
Yeah, and with ease. But for the second one, it's all like, you didn't have to learn that learning.
Yeah.
$3? Can't beat it.
It's not dedicated memory.
It's outside the home.
Yeah, I always say that.
You know, maybe they, in terms of people doing, maybe a couple of times we should really
I never did a machine before, but I
really
really
want
wanted
the congregation how it's to be done. That hagba is first you pull it out, then you split, Lila, it's time you machazikiba, you don't wait. You immediately go and you do machazikata, AC. Right, yes, yes.
So they're more ready. That would be.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Oh, the tea you take your full.
It's only a dar one. You're already there. You're already at Pesach.
Yes, sure, sure.
Yeah.
Day of on, the day of on. Gusto.
Yeah, it's West LA. So, but I have my mother-in-law in a home here on Crescent Drive, Beverly Hills. So I went to visit. Try to wake her up. Your home is here. Are you wheelchair, not wheelchair?
Ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
It was kind of embarrassing, I guess, more, it took like 15 minutes before they re-rolled on the Torah, for the Torah. What happened? Or generally that's done ahead of time, right?
So for two secret Torah, was this morning, the second Torah scroll that was rolled is here in Paul, the one that was rolled for Rosh Chodesh. So in the moment, when we were taking Torahs out of the ark, we had to take whichever Torah was there and put it on the table. And then,
It's a mistake, I just didn't understand how it was done.
yeah, because there, at any given time, when we have Rosh Chodesh happening, we have a Torah scroll that's rolled. So we own 18 kosher Torah scrolls in the building. So this is the one that's rolled for Rosh Chodesh right here. And yeah, that's life. And so if we were a community that only had one Torah scroll, it would have been just the one. But, yeah.
Everywhere there is danger.
Oh, yeah.
Los Angeles, there is more activity.
That's how I felt when the first time I was in Israel.
You know what, I have, I'm sorry, when I have an Israeli customer, they moved here and they were living in Valley and her husband was working down. One day he enters home, when he parks his car, he hasn't understood on freeway. He had like 4 bullets on his car. And he told his wife, Yalla, go
Back
back,
and go back.
we are going, at least in Israel, we know why we are dying. We don't know why.
Yeah,
we're
it's
attacking
true.
us.
It's true. Just random violence.
There's too much people. Yesterday, somebody was telling me in Azerbaijan, there was in a grave, a child was, everybody was killed by an accident. And they were there to bury their child. And because it's Armenian and Turkish village books. And so he says to the people, audience, he says, it's okay, we have lost one child, but I want you to next year, on his first anniversary, like his name, for example, was Muhammad. And everybody will give him a name, Muhammad, after his child. And I will come in a year, if there are such things, I will pay him 1,500 rubles. And he said after 1 year, he's going to look at the anniversary and go there. And the same person somewhere he had come. And after the service, he says, Muhammad was born this year.
All right, we're going to begin learning. Like I said before, if you really wanted to, you could also follow along in the Eitz Chaim and look at the context for the verse I'm going to offer. But at the end of the day, most of the commentary that we're going to look at is surrounding the pasuk, this one verse. Before we get into the teaching, I want to share a little bit about my adventure with therapy. And you'll see why in a moment. I love going to talk therapy. It's a very important part of my life. For a lot of people whom I know, going to therapy is something that makes them as healthy as they need to be. It's very important to be in relationship with a therapist. And a couple therapists ago, I was working with a therapist in a process called cognitive behavioral therapy, which is one form of talk therapy. It's been around for many decades. And that therapist fired me and said, I think instead you need to be working with a different therapist who does a very different methodology. And the methodology that she recommended to me through this new therapist was called IFS, Internal Family Systems. It's a little bit of a misnomer if you think that immediately it's a therapy surrounding the investigation of a family, because it has nothing to do with a family external to the individual, but rather the family of parts that exist within an individual person. So it's colloquially referred to not as IFS, but as parts work. What is parts work? It's discovering all the different aspects of the self, which are at times all present. Sometimes they are partially hidden, and identifying them gives somebody the opportunity to invite that part into the room or invite it to stay out of the room. For example, if our child part is very wounded by disappointment and by losing, then perhaps when we're in a competitive situation, before we go in knowing that there might be a level of disappointment, we might say to our inner child part, you're not invited. You're staying outside of this situation and out of the room, and vice versa. Sometimes it's the inverse that we want to invite that part to be in the room to support us. We have manager parts. We have parts that are self-loving parts, all very important. But one of the things that the therapy has given me an opportunity to think about are the multifaceted natures of each individual person who I'm in relationship with at any given time. It's not just me who is made up of many parts, whether I'm examining them or not. It's everyone is around me as well. And the commentary that I'm exploring this week talks about that notion, that people, that sacred objects, that God, that time, all of it, even when we say it's just one thing, that thing is made up of many parts. So we're going to start by looking at the Parshat Truma, chapter 26, verse 6. One of the descriptors of the tabernacle, the Mishkan, that's going to be built, goes as follows. V'asita chamishim karsei zahav. And you're going to make 50 golden clasps. V'chibarta et hayuriot, and you shall clasp together the curtains. It says here the cloths, but that's what it's referring to. Yuriot are curtains. Isha el achota. What is Isha? A woman. El means to, a direct object. Achota is her sister. Achota. So each woman to her sister. That's how these clasps are described. Isha el achota. You should clasp them one to the other. It's a very beautiful, decorative language. No pun intended. Ba kirasim. You should use those kirasim, those clasps, to put them one to the other. V'haya hamishkan echad. And the Mishkan, the tabernacle, will be one. So what's the first question to investigate? The most basic surface level question based on the way this verse wraps up. What's the most basic question to ask?
If there are two parts, how can that be one?
If there are two parts, how can that be one? And I'll expand on that. If there are 50 gold clasps, how can those become one? What do you mean, Hamishkan Echad? What does it mean that the Mishkan is one? We just said there are 50 clasps. There are individual curtains. We're going to clip them to each other with these clasps. And then it's going to be one. What magic is this that it's one? So the Zohar, which is, we're not going to linger on for too long, but this Kabbalistic text, or rather the text that the Kabbalists cling to as a sacred commentary from about 500-600 years ago, says the following about this verse. Patach ve'amar. Here the verse opens and says, Ve'et hamishkan ta'aseh eser yeriot v'chulei, and so on. Ha raza. This is a mystery. Remember the raza circle that came a few weeks ago? That raza, that's where that word, that's that same, well, one and the same word, that a mysterious or secretive thing. Ha raza d'Yehuda. This is the mystery of Yehuda, or oneness, unification. Daha tikuna demashkena mikama dargin ihu. So that's the arrangement, the daha. This one is the fixing or the arrangement of the Mishkan from all the different levels, like madrigot, dargin ihu. Dichtiv be v'haya hamishkan echad. And then in that, the Mishkan was one. Le'it chaza dechol shayfin de gufa. That is, in every individual, there are connected to one another, upper ones and lower ones in the body. Kulhu raza de gufa chad. And each of them are sort of a mysterious part of one singular body. So what is the Zohar saying about oneness? What are they comparing the Mishkan to here? The human body. So how is a human body made of upper and lower parts? What are some different reads on that? What is the upper and the lower of a human person? You could have just the head and the upper part, and then you've got the lower part, right? You've got your head and your shoulders and your arms, and then you've got your lower, the tachton, the lower part of you. Good. What are other reads on that? What else could we read as upper and lower parts of a human? Oh, right. So you could do the thinking or the emotion. And in fact, the ancient people used to think that the heart was the seat of wisdom, of knowledge, of knowing. That was da'at there. So you could think that, so you're right, the heart is in that upper part, but that heart is a seat of knowledge. Right. And then below you could have the things that are perhaps mysterious or unknown, like the raza. And of course, you can have the idea of parts of us that are raised in their awareness of holiness in the world, and there are also lower. In other words, in modern and contemporary thinking, we say we have our upper brain and our lower brain. Do you know from this concept? The upper brain being when we are in our most amygdala positive state, when our brain is thinking straight, when we really have our head on straight, we can think in our upper brain. We can reason. We can push off, we can delay gratification. But when we're thinking in our lower brain, when we're firing, when that amygdala is firing, when we are all riled up and cortisol is shooting through our body and we are either fighting or freezing or fleeing, we don't think reasonably. That is our lower brain. So that's a metaphorical upper and a lower of a human being as well. Ibn Ezra is going to expand on this idea. So already I think you can see where I was going with this notion of the parts work and the IFS and how a human being, much like the Mishkan, is made up of so many parts. But it's not limited to that. We're going to get wider and wider and wider. So let's look at Ibn Ezra first. Ibn Ezra says, V'hine eser yeriot hu hamishkan v'hamishkan kar'u echad kolel hakol. And here you have the 10 curtains, and then here's the Mishkan, and the Mishkan was called one that contained everything. It encompassed all of it. Ki kol guf eno davar echad, rak hu mechubar me achadim. There's never just one thing. Everything in the universe is made up of conjoined mechubar me achadim, from one things. Everything in this world is made up of many parts. This microphone has a metal cage, an internal part. It has batteries, it has a button, it has a light, and so on and so forth. This synagogue is not just a synagogue. What's in the synagogue? We have people who are in the synagogue. And even if the synagogue is empty, we have books and other individual items in the synagogue. And even if the rooms were empty, we would still have the sanctuary room, and we'd still have the offices, and we'd have Pilch Hall. There are component parts to every single thing in this world. Then it makes a comparison to God, the text, the Ibn Ezra text. V'chacha Hashem hanichbad. And thus is the holy, most respected name. Shehu echad kolel hakol v'nikra echad. Because God is one, it is one that contains everything. And what do we call that one that contains everything? One. We call God echad. And God contains everything. And God we call one. We're going to come back to that text in a minute too, because that's a familiar idea that we declare the oneness of God. The Akedat Yitzchak, I put some like footnotes in the last page so I could, so you could reference where these all come from. The Akedat Yitzchak, which is a Spanish text from the 15th century, is a series of sermons from Rabbi Yitzchak ben Moshe Arama. And there are all these different pieces of all these different she'arim, all these different gates, and each of these gates has within it a sermon, a Devar Torah. So there's a philosophical idea contained with each of these individual. In each of these individual sermons, you have a philosophical idea, and the philosophical idea that's being discussed in this sha'ar, in this gate, by this rabbi who published his work in Saloniki, this is all about echadness. It's all about oneness. Now, before we started with the idea that the Mishkan, the Zohar confirms for us, the Mishkan is one, even though it's made up of many parts. And then Ibn Ezra has a commentary that says, well, every human being, right? Every human being has individual parts. So the Zohar says every individual human being has different parts. And Ibn Ezra comes along and says it's so much more than that. It's also God. It's also the conception of God in the world. The Akedat Yitzchak will come along and expand that idea times 10. We're going to look at the English because the Hebrew is extremely long with lots of quotes. And I'll look at the Hebrew for every other text, but it will take us too long to get through. We don't have so long before the end of Shabbat. So, Lihiyot HaTorah HaElohait ve'im Adonai ele shomrei mitzvoteha mityachasim b'imhotam kivar amaru alehem shehiyu chataim ushlamim. I can make up what is behind this thing that printed on the page, echad. When I look at the translation, I can backwards engineer it. Okay, so let's look at the English. The term echad, to be one thing, is applied to items that are whole, not to parts of any unit. So we start with this idea that we don't call anything echad that is actually one. We don't say this cup is one because it's one. We say this cup is one because there's a handle and there's a vessel part. That's why it's one, because it has component parts to it. Anything that is actually atomically one, we don't call one. It has its own name. What do we call echad? Echad is a hint at yichud, at things having come together, being ma'achdim, being mechubarim, being brought together and conjoined into one item or one person or one deity, one God. So anything that's incomplete, because it's defective, because it's surplus, because it's redundant, those things that are incomplete, they cannot qualify for the description one. God will be perceived as echad, as one, in the Messianic age, even though to our limited intellect, God might appear as having many, many facets. Pausing on that idea, I feel like the opposite is true for most people. And I think it's interesting that the text goes there. I think for most people, we imagine God as one, and then we have to reason it out that, of course, there must be many aspects to God. But here the text imagines quite the opposite, that we see God in so many different ways and places in our life, but that it takes thinking and it takes trust and faith to understand that all those different thingies, all those different spiritual access points go to one God. That might speak to the kind of spiritual and religious thinking that was happening in the context of the Akedat Yitzchak's time, of Rabbi Arama's time. I'm curious about that, but I don't want to dwell on it too long. So the Akedat Yitzchak says God is going to be conceived of as one. And how do we know that? Vayom hahu yihye Adonai echad, ushemo echad. That's a quote from Zechariah, from the prophet Zechariah, because on that day, Yom hahu, that day, God will be one, known to all the peoples of the earth as one, perceived of as one. The Jewish people, as we just sang in Minha, it doesn't say that in Akedat Yitzchak, but I'm just telling you, we just sang it in Minha. What are the Jewish people? We are a goy echad ba'aretz, right? Ata echad v'shimcha echad. You are one, your name is one, and we are goy echad ba'aretz. We are a people who are one. We have a mission in life, in history, which requires all parts of the nation to be part thereof. You cannot be a part of the Jewish people unless you are a part of that oneness and that connectedness. Sometimes we call this Kalal Yisrael, right? That's going back to the other word that was used in the earlier text for kolel. The Mishkan is kolel et, all the parts. It is inclusive of all the parts. God is kolel et hakol. God includes all. And we are Kalal Yisrael, an all-inclusive oneness. Got it? So when we say Kalal Yisrael, we're saying we are all part of and connected to that echadness. Then he gets a little more esoteric. A day is not a night plus a day, but the total of one 24-hour period is one day, one unit. When Yosef told Paro that the repetition of his dream showed that the dream was one, he said, no, Paro, this is one long dream, all those parts. He meant that each dream separately was meaningless. Only when you viewed it together was it a unit. The dream about the cows, the dreams about the stars, each of them make no sense until you see that they are all one prophecy downloaded to Yosef through his connection to the universe and to God. Anyone who transgresses a single commandment of the Torah destroys the unity of Torah. That's a little harsh. And as if he has transgressed all the laws. This, by the way, is similar to something that I trying to recall. I don't think the Akedat Yitzchak mentions it, but a much more positive way of saying this is one who saves a single individual's life. It is as if they saved the entire world. So it says in Pirkei Eliezer and a few other places. The same applies to anyone tampering with Torah, either by adding or subtracting a single law from it. If you were to take away one thing or add one thing to the Torah, would it still be the Torah? No, because the oneness, the unit, is what matters. A man without a woman is not really a man at all because he cannot fulfill his purpose in life. Taking away the slight misogyny and heteronormativity of that for a second, it's actually a beautiful notion that one individual is not on their own capable of completing who they are meant to be and the indelible mark they leave on the universe. Rather, they must be in union. They must be in companionship. And together with that companionship, we have many ways of conceiving of this now. But the notion is that we need to leave a legacy. For the way that the Akedat Yitzchak is thinking, that legacy is a man and a woman have a child. In 2024, we think a little bit differently about how people can leave legacies and what it means, because there are teachers out there who have no biological children, no adopted children, but of course, every child who learned with them is their student and is their legacy. So that's the notion here. That's my drosh on his notion. When one person sins, he destroys the unity of the nation, makes the nation unable to achieve its destiny, its purpose in God's universe. I want you to think creatively with me for a second. What might it mean for one single Jewish person's transgression to destroy that nation? How could that be? Okay, if it's a transgression as serious as taking a life, of course that destroys the people. That's connected to that idea. How else, Rosa?
I'm thinking, like a problem in Los Angeles, there are a lot of gangs doing a lot of breaking into stores, and stealing a lot of merchandise. And they're ruining the whole city. They're ruining the jobs. They're ruining the economy.
Okay.
They're ruining the whole structure of the city. They're destroying people.
Right. So when you do a singular sin, let's say you commit the sin of vandalism or of looting, that the impact isn't just that you've stolen that one item that you've stolen or the series of items you've stolen or broken the trust of that individual. You've now made the city feel less safe. You've now made other people, as a consequence, perhaps have impact on their jobs if the store can't stay open, et cetera, et cetera. So one little thing can beget, it can gorer, it can create more opportunities for falling apart. You never just impact one person by violating laws. And I like the way that you're thinking, Rosa, outside the normative structure of Jewish law. Yeah, Irv.
Yeah, mine was similar. Bad act gives a bad reputation to whoever it is.
A bad actor gives a bad reputation to whichever group with which they're associated. I'll give you a wonderful story based on this. I always ask at a Beit Din for conversion how people are known or intend to be known as a Jew to the other people who are around them, and how it changes the way they act in the world. How are you known to be a Jew? And I say to them, it could be something physical about you. It could be your actions. It could be something spiritual about you. Many people have said, well, I wear a Jewish star. I eat kosher food, and people associate that kind of eating with the Jewish people, and therefore they know I'm Jewish. I take Shabbat off from my work, therefore they know that I'm Jewish. Two stories have been told to me that have really stuck with me on this front that I think go to this point. The first is somebody said, well, the way that the people at my office know that I'm Jewish is that I used to gossip every day, all day long with everyone in the office. And when I learned about the idea of Lashon Hara, of not saying things that about people who are not in the room, I stopped. People would say, oh, did you hear about this? And I said to them, no, I didn't, and I would not like to, which is a wonderful way of saying that the inverse is also true.
Look at Christmas differently, first of all. I always thought a very vulgar question to ask young children is, and what did you get for Christmas? Like it's all about getting.
Sure.
I always thought that was a rather vulgar question. If the value is all wrong.
Sure.
Did you help someone at Christmas? I can see that. Did you try to make it a better world in Christmas?
Right. What questions are you asking of people to test their judgment? So one more example, and then I saw your hand. One more example is that somebody said, the way people in the world know that I'm Jewish is the way that I drive, because I wear a kippah now, and I used to drive like a maniac, very aggressively. But then this one time I was about to cut somebody off on the road, and I realized that while I wear my kippah, whatever behavior I have on the road, they will associate with me being a Jewish individual. And I certainly don't want that person, he said, I don't care if that person says, that guy in the white car. But I do care if they say, look how the Jews drive. And even if that's an unfair judgment from the other person, the anticipation that other people see you as a part of that people such that it should shift your behavior to be as responsible as possible is a rather beautiful notion, that you will be so aware, not just of the impact on your life and on others, but on the whole that you are a part of. I saw your hand.
Kind of general question, who determines if sin was committed?
Well, who determines if...
Sometimes arguments.
Yeah. So who determines if sin is committed? Two answers to that question. The first is, I think if you ask the Akedat Yitzchak, he would say it's objective. We have Jewish law and you're either breaking it or you are not breaking it. And to say it much more broadly, we started talking here about committing sins being an analog, it can be paralleled by graffitiing someone's property in Los Angeles in 2024. And so who is sinning, who is transgressing? The one who is breaking with norms enough to either receive punishment or receive the attention of having broken with that norm.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's endless arguments if sin was committed or not. Talking about graffiti, lately, you probably read in downtown.
Yeah.
People drawing this high-rise building graffiti.
Right, a large graffiti, large building.
Times was coming, well, this is a form of artwork.
Great. Great. What a wonderful example. The LA Times did indeed say, well, it's a form of street art to have graffitied that entire building. Even if one person agrees with that, the most attentive individual, according to this text, is the one who wonders who will be impacted by either the negative or the positive associations with that. So let's read it back into the text. Even if it's a positive form of art, we are associating that art not just with whoever was the individual who climbed to the 41st floor. We are associating it with the group that they are a part of and represent. And it sometimes happens, I'm trying to lay the groundwork for this. It's not necessarily that I want to be known as a Jew everywhere where I drive on the road or how I act in the break room, but we are each part and parcel of that group and of that community. And therefore, the impact of our actions in this world are never lonely. They're always a part of that whole, whether we like it or not, according to this text. I'm going to move on to make sure we can get through all of it. I see lots of interest and hands. That's great. Let me get through the rest of this. Our sages, when one person sins, he destroys the unity of the nation, makes the nation unable to achieve its destiny, its purpose in God's universe. Woof, that's tough. One person sins and we're all down. Actually, you see this idea out there sometimes in the world that if every Jewish individual, every single one on this planet were to celebrate one Shabbat, then the world would be redeemed. But of course, that's a purposeful exaggeration, right? It's nearly impossible, if not impossible, for that to happen. Our sages view the relationship between Israel and God, meaning the people of Israel and God, in such a manner that the achdut, the unity of God, is impaired, it's damaged, when Israel does not enjoy God's favor through acting in a manner contrary to God's wishes. And then it goes through another example of a couple of battles that we're going to skip through. It goes through the example of Korach as well, which is also interesting. And we're going to skip all the way to the next page where there's just an itty bitty bit of English text left. Moses was taught that he had erred. A few people trying to collect manna on the Shabbat are considered as if the whole nation had refused God's commandments. And then God said in return to them, "How long are you refusing to observe my commandments?" And of course, the takeaway here is not how long are you 5 or 6 people disobeying by collecting manna, but rather all of you people. It's like the kids who complain that the whole class lost recess because 3 or 4 kids were misbehaving, right? When a few people misbehave, God sees that misbehavior and responds, apparently in the text of the Torah, to by punishing the whole, because we are echad, because we're one. We're going to move to Likutei Halachot, which is a commentary on the Orach Chaim, which is a collection of legal codes. And it jumps right in the middle of a sentiment, but I checked and we don't need to know the rest of what's going on. So trust me on the context here. I can send you the text if you want to know more. The al yedei zeh, and as a result of this, nitiyached kedusha, nitiyached kudsha brichu, the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy Blessed One, will be unified, nitiyached, ushchintah Bechina Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. And this Shekhinah will also be unified, meaning God's feminine dwelling presence will also be unified along with the Kadosh Baruch Hu part. And this is expressed in the opening verse of Kriyat Shema. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. This text says that same unity, that same achdut is reflected in the Mishkan as is expressed in the verse from that very first text that we read, the first text from our Parsha today, which reads, Isha elachota bakrasim v'haya hamishkan echad. One will be conjoined to the other and the Mishkan will be one. So direct comparison between the oneness of the Mishkan and the oneness of God. There's a wonderful question that gets asked about this oneness and this achdut of God. I feel confident that we've explored some of the contours of what it means for a people to be one. But for God to have many aspects, like I said in the beginning, I struggle with this idea that we would see the many facets of God in the world and have a hard time seeing that all as a part of one God. The rabbinic sources ask a question on that text that we read at the end of the Aleinu prayer, Zechariah, and it's a question about whether or not we've ever seen God's oneness. We declare God to be one, but have we ever met a whole God? Do we know God as one, or is that something we're going to encounter only by Yom Hahu on that day? So there's a text in Talmud Pesachim that explores this. It goes as follows. The verse from Zechariah is V'haya Adonai lamelech al kol haaretz v'yom hahu yihi Adonai echad u'shmo echad. They ask, V'haya Adonai lamelech al kol haaretz v'yom hahu yihi Adonai echad u'shmo echad atu. And how could it be that we say he's not one right now? If it's Bayom Hahu, is God not one as of right now? And Rabbi Acha Bar Chanina had a wonderful saying about this. What is the difference between God's oneness, whether it exists now or not, and God's oneness in the future? Is it that God isn't one now and will be one in the future? God is one, says Rabbi Acha Bar Chanina. But the way that we experience God in the world is going to shift into seeing the one singular aspect And how will that be manifest? Lo ka'olam hazeh ha'olam haba. The world to come is not like this world, and our world is not like it. Ha'olam hazeh, this world, al besorot tovot omer. When we get good news, we say, Baruch hatov v'hametiv. Blessed is the one who makes good and improves to be even better. Ve'al besarot ra'ot omer. And upon terrible tidings, we say, Baruch dayan ha'emet. Blessed is the true judge. We accept that God determines the fate of each person and each thing in the universe. La'olam haba, in the future world, says Rabbi Acha Bar Chanina, kulo hatov v'hametiv. Everything will be for good. Now, some rabbis read that verse and say, well, everything's going to be hatov v'hametiv because there will not be bisorot ra'ot. There will be no bad news. And because there's no bad news, there will be no reason to say Baruch dayan ha'emet. Instead, everything is for the good and even for making better. But I think that another way of considering this teaching in the context of all of the oneness of the world is to say that we won't see God and we won't see people as split into good parts and bad parts, their component parts. Right now, we see good things in the world and we say, thank God. And we see bad things in the world and our tradition tells us to say, well, I guess God isn't just a giver of goodness. God is also a giver of things that we don't really want to see, but we say we trust in you, true judge. But in a redeemed world, in the world to come, in the world that we strive to reach, we don't look at all those individual parts. We're able to see the whole. And what a beautiful thing if we were able to do that also with people and peoples. What if we were able to not see people as made up of their individual component parts, which may or not at any given moment rub us the right way, either for a people or a peoples. The messianic way of looking at the world, according to these teachings, is to look and see each individual thing in this world, whether it's a cup or a microphone or a room in this building, or somebody's grumpy mood and somebody's good mood, or one Jewish person versus a whole Jewish people, to see them as a part of a connected whole, and that people are often way more than the sum of their parts, and so are things in this world. I think that's a lovely teaching to go out of the Shabbat with, and I hope that it gives new meaning both to Ata echad v'shimcha echad, you're one and your name is one, and goy echad, that we are also one people on this earth. And also, as we get to Aleinu and Ma'ariv, Bayom hahu yihyeh Adonai echad u'shmo echad, that it's not just a saying from Zechariah, but it's a prayer that on that day, we'll see a unity in this world of all things, and we'll no longer have to decide whether we're witnessing God's grumpy side or God's happy side, but rather we see all as a component part, each thing is a component part of one greater networked divine presence in this world. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to do Kaddish D'Rabbanan, but first we're going to do Birkat Hamazon. Did anybody have bread who can lead benching? Marshall can? Okay, great. So we're going to start with Shir Hamalot. Don't forget to include, we won't do everything out loud, but include the paragraph for Rosh Chodesh, because even though Rosh Chodesh is almost over, we still ate during Rosh Chodesh. 42 or 47.
Shir Hamalot b'shuv Adonai et shivat Zion hayinu kechomim az yimalei sechot pinu ulshonenu rina az yomru v'agoyim higdil Adonai la'asot imelech higdil Adonai la'asot imanu ayinu semechim Shuva Adonai et shevitenu ka'afikim ba'negev hazorim bedima berina yikzoru halach yelech uvacho nosei meshech hazara bo yavo berina nosei Alumotav חברי נברך. יהי שם אלוהים מברך מטב יד עולם, ברשות חברי, נברך אלוהינו שחלום משלו. ברוך אלוהינו שחלום משלו, ובטובו חיינו, ברוך הוא ברוך שמו, ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, הזן את העולם כולו בטובו, וכן בחסד וברחמים. הוא נותן לחם לכל בשר, כי לעולם חסדו, ובטובו הגדול. תמיד לא חסר לנו, ויחסר לנו מזון לעולם ועד, בעבור שמו הגדול. כי הוא אלזן ומפרנס לכל, ומיטיב לכל, ומכין מזון לכל בריאותיו אשר ברא. ברוך אתה אדוני, הזן את הכל. הרחמן יברך מדינת ישראל, ראשית צמיחת גאולתנו. הרחמן יברך את חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל, ויגן עליהם. הרחמן יברך את אחינו בני ישראל, הנצונים בצרה, ויוציאם מאפלה לאורה. הרחמן הוא יזכן למות המשיח, ולחיי העולם הבא. מגדול ישועות מלכו, ויעשה חסד למשיחו, לדוד ולזרעו עד עולם. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
Yesher Koach. We turn to page 264. First, though, page 38, Kaddish Darabanan. I almost forgot. Page 38. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. Va'agala u'vizman kari ve'imru Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam v'lamei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemeh dekudsha berichu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata. Tush b'chata v'nechamata. Damiram be'alma v'imru. Amen. Al Yisrael ve'al Rabbanan ve'al Talmidehon. Ve'al kol Talmidehon. Ve'al kol man de'askim b'oraita. Di ve'atra hadain v'di v'chol atar va'atar. Yehi lahon olchon shlama rabbah. China v'chista v'rachamin, v'chayin arichin, umzona ravicha, u'forkana min kadam avohon di vishmaya v'imru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, V'chaim tovim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu berachamav yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. We rise or remain standing, page 264. After the Baruch Hu, you can be seated. והוא רחום יכבר הבומלו, ישחית וירבה שיפה פה ולא יאיר כל חמתו. אדוני יושיע המלך יעננו ויהום קוראנו. ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam
ברוך
vaed.
אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני למלך. מעביר יום ומביא לילה, מבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו חי וקיים תמיד, יום נחלנו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני המרעיף ערבים. אהבת שלום ביתי לבך.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך
Now that call to see me all that mean Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Adonai Elohechem Emet V'emunah Kol Zov V'kayem Aleinu Ki Hu Adonai. מלכות ברצון גילו אביהם משה ונצר לכאן השירה בשמחה רבה ומרו כולם מי כמוך בעלים אדוני מי כמוך נהדר בקודש נוראתי לא תוסיף אלה מלכותך ראו ובניך בו קיים לפני משה זהי לנו והמירו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר יפת אדוני את יעקב ויעלם יד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני קהל ישראל השיבינו אדוני אלינו לשלום. ושמור צאתנו אלינו לחיים ולשלום את אביעד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני שומר עמו ישראל לעד. כי המלכות שלך היא עולם היד תמלוך בכבוד כי אין לנו מלך אלא אתה ברוך אתה אדוני המלך לכבודו תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ועל כל מעשיו יגדל יקדש שם מרבה ילמד יברח ירצף ימליך בחוטי בחייכון וימכון וחיית כל בית ישראל עליו בזמן קריב אמרו אמן איש מרבה מברך לעולם ומהמי יברך וישבח יתפאר וישמע ויתנשא ויתדע ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי לקודש בריחו ואלמים כה ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירם והמה ואמרו amen. Whispered private Amidah begins on 270. We no longer make insertions for Rosh Chodesh, but we do for the end of Shabbat. If you haven't yet completed your Amitabh, please continue at your own pace. Chat Kaddish is on page 279. Yikadav, Yikadash Mirabah, Yamati Rak, Yertivim Lich, Pakativ Chaychon, Vimechon Vchaydu Kol Beit Yisrael, Bagalav, Bizman Karivim, Ru Amen, Yeheshem Mirabah, Varak, Lilam, Ulmeo Maya, Yibarach, Yishma, Yibar, Vishma, Vitna, Sevita Dar, Vita Levi, Talash, Medikudesha, Meri, Hule, Thavin Kober Katav Shirata, Jishbachata, Nechamata, Damiram, Pelmavim, Ru Amen. We're in the middle of 279. Vina, Hamanunai, Helenu, Helenu, Hasayadin, Hukona, Helenu. Ukraine, Hilenehu, Odochi, Sarach, Alitzehu, Viachletehu, or Yami must be Ehu. There be Shuati, or Yami must be Ehu. There you be Shuati. We turn back to 216. Uva, Obeata Kadosh Shefti, Lodge Israel, Vikaraza, Hoseve Amar, Kadosh, 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 and Nights, Vomalach, Loritz, Kabuto, and lead me. Atisaini Ruach, Flesh Macharai, Kol Rahash, Gadol Baruch, Kevodonai, Mime Komo, Adonai himloch le'olam va'ed Adonai mukadei le'olam. Yivtechu v'cha yodei shemecha. Hilo hasafta doreshecha Adonai. Adonai chafetz emanzi koyadil Torah v'yadir. Turn back to page 280. Yikadav, Yikadash Mirabah, V'yamati V'rak, Yertevim Lich, Malchati V'chayechon, V'yamechon V'chayidu Chol Beit Yisrael, V'agalav V'zman Kari, V'imru Amen, Yeshem Mirabah V'varak Le'elav L'meho Maya, Yiparach V'yishtabach, Yipar V'jama V'idna Sivita Dar V'ita Le V'ita Lal Shemei D'Kudesha V'rich U'lehila, V'inko B'rchata V'sherat Tush B'chata V'nechamata, Damiram Be'alma V'imru Amen, Tikabat Salat Ono Jan D'chol Yisrael, Kadama V'honu Yishmaya V'imru Amen, Yesh Lamarab Amin Shemaya, Aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'imrom avu yasei shalom aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'imru amen. Remain standing. We're on 281. Aleinu l'shabei hakla don hakol. Take it to live the
Shelo asanu kiri haaretz lo saman chukwadama. Shelo samchakenu kahem v'gorlen kachol hamonam. V'anachnu koreim yishtachavim umodim l'chimachei hamelachim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu shenoten shamayis.
Hakatu v'toratach Adonai himloch le'olam va'ed v'ne'emar v'chaya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz. V'yom hahu yichye Adonai echad. Ushmo echad. Mourner's Kaddish 282. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabah. V'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayichon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. V'agalav v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabah mevarach le'olam u'lamei omaya. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal. Shmei dekudesha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush b'chata v'nechamata. Damiram be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabah min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'ramav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. All right.
Yeah, sure.
Yai nai 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 nai. Hine el Yeshuati, heftach velo hefchad. Ki ozi v'zimrat ya Adonai, v'yihi li Yeshua, u'shavtem mayim b'sason, Mimane Hayeshua, Ladonai Hayeshua, Alamcha Birchatecha Sela, Adonai Tzivaot, Imanu, Miskav Lainu, Elohei Yaakov Sela, Adonai Tzivaot, Asher Yadam Noitei Bach, Adonai Hoshia, Hamelech Yaneinu Yom Koreinu, La Yehudim, Hai Torah, Besimcha V'sason Mikar, Keindi Elanu, Kosi Yeshu Hotesa, Hu B'Shem Adonai Ekra, Yainanai, 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 Savri, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melchol Amorai, Pri Agafen, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melchol Olam, Morei Minei Besamim. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melchol Olam, Morei Ha'esh. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melchol Olam, Hamavdil ben Kodesh lecho ben or lecho shel Yisrael Amim, ben Yom Hashvi'i l'shesh Me'aseh. Baruch Atah Adonai Hamavdil ben Kodesh lecho. Hamavdil ben Kodesh lecho, Chatoteinu imcho, Zareinu v'chaspeinu yarvei yarvei V'hakochavim balayla, Zareinu v'chaspeinu yarvei yarvei V'hakochavim balayla. Eliyahu hanavi, Eliyahu hatishmi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu hagiladi, bimhira b'yameinu, Yavo Eleinu, Imashiach ben David, Imashiach ben David. Shavua Tov, everybody.
Marlies.
Hi, Tybal. Shavua
Hi.
Tov.
And hi, Gary. I saw Gary. That is Gary, right?
There's Gary right there.
In the
Yeah.
plaid, red and black.
I love it.
I like this new double view.
Yeah. I'm on gallery a lot of the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov. Yeah. How are you doing?
Thank you for asking. How are you?
Okay. Yeah. Hanging in there. Yeah.
Rabbi Cantor, both last night and today, she had a double weekend.
Oh.
Were you either there or on last night?
I was not there last night. No. Yeah.
Because she talked about something. I'm not on Facebook, so I wouldn't have known to look. But she said that Rachel Goldberg, in addition to doing the number and doing the advocacy, reads and focuses on the psalm, which is the same number of the day of captivity.
Oh.
So yesterday, 126 is one of her favorite psalms. And I then looked, it's an open Facebook thing. I thought that was interesting. And I learned that from Rabbi Cantor. And I'm hoping that she was not going to have to figure out what to do after 150.
Yes. Yeah. Amen.
Yeah. Anyway.
Please, God. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was very interesting today, too.
Yeah.
Anyway, nice to see you because, they had three, we have two, but still, when it's only one. Devices, I mean.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Just the two of us.
All
right,
no, good to be on with you. Yeah, Shavua Tov.
Yep.
Bye.